afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have a very interesting conversation about the textiles industry, yay, and also just rethinking what it means to be sustainable, investigating the role that innovation plays, and also diving into the role that legislation is going to play in the textiles industry. So it's all super interesting. I've got 3 wonderful guests here. So if you guys can introduce yourselves, tell them your name, and then 5 things they need to know about you.
Want me to start?
Okay. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, my name is Tillessen. I'm part of DMI. DMI is the eldest and leading trend agency in the German-speaking market, or one of the eldest trend agencies globally. And besides of that, I've written a book which turned out to be a bestseller. It's called Konsum, which is a German word for consumption, and deals with the topic of overconsumption and quantity, and the problem of quantities in fashion too. Yeah.
You next.
Hi everybody, my name is Jasmien. I'll try to do the 5 things thing. So I've been advising fashion brands for the past decade on sustainability and circularity strategies. I wrote a children's book on sustainable fashion. It's called Do Pants Grow on Trees? I studied master in environmental sciences 3 years ago to get more in depth on climate change. I'm a guest editor for Fashion United, writing about how can we make very difficult, complex issues really easy to understand for fashion professionals. And I love dancing and Whitney Houston.
There we go, thank you. Marco, you're next.
Yes, my name is Marco Mantellassi. I am the CEO, together with my brother, of company Manteco, which is the supplier of wool, cashmere, and different kind of other brands, mostly natural blends. And we are very known for the circular approach to the business, for the luxury recycle, and also nowadays for the heavy wool. That's all more or less.
And I'm going to have a bit of fun with you guys and tell you my 5 things. My name's Muchaneta to Napel. I guess the first fun fact is I've worked with Munich Fabric Start for about 5 to 6 years. The second one is that I used to want to be a CNN reporter, but ended up working in fashion innovation, so complete turnaround. The third thing is that I also lecture at London College of Fashion. The fourth is that I've actually worked with companies like LVMH Atelier in helping them understand the adoption of innovation. And the 5th one is, in this job, I get the opportunity to speak to experts like yourself, which helps me learn about the industry as well, firsthand. So that's my 5 things. So let's get started, guys. When it comes to textile industry, I would love to first start off by you guys telling people what you think needs to be done. Let's start there, because I think a lot of people are aware of what the problems are. You know, we need to be more sustainable, we need to be more circular, we need to, think about manufacturing and practices and so forth. But if you could tell the industry one thing, the first step they need to take, what would that be?
I don't know if that's the first step, but it's something that maybe is overlooked sometimes, that we're all trying to improve the processes and trying to use sustainable processes and sustainable materials, but the quantities of the global quantities of fashion that is produced is growing at such a fast pace that the overall environmental impact of fashion, of the fashion industry, deteriorates despite all these efforts to improve the processes. So we have to watch both. We have to watch the processes and the materials, but we also have to watch the quantities.
So you're saying that it starts with looking at overproduction. We should start there. It's a good starting point. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's the one. It's not enough if you don't. If you can ignore it, you can't ignore it and just focus on the process and the materials. Yeah.
And what are your thoughts, Jasmien?
Yeah, I totally agree, of course, because I think we are all very aware that the business model we're in as an industry is just not holding up. It doesn't make any sense that we take very valuable resources, that we create something out of it, we send it all over the world to be worn 2 to 10 times maybe, and then being transported all over the world again to be dumped again in third world countries. The business model is insane, and I think we're very aware that that is something that needs to change. The actual question is how, because this asks for a system change. It's like an entire system we're in that needs to shift. And we've done this before. We've already shifted entirely. We all remember we used to smoke on airplanes or in between dishes in a restaurant. So it is possible, but it takes time. And until we're there, I think we need a lot of legislation to push us that direction, and that's happening. We have a lot of legislation coming up. But until we're there, I think it's important that we all try to take tiny steps until we reach that point. Because if we're all like, oh, but it's the system problem, we have to stop over-consuming and producing, it feels so big that we just, okay, but then I can't do anything anymore. So my advice to companies most of the time is to already do what you can do now, like look at your quick wins, start there, set goals, tangible actions that are feasible within 5 years, what you think will be feasible within 10 years, and try to push yourself and your entire team towards the right direction already. That's
I've heard that argument before about the need to kind of dismantle the old system and replace it with the new one. I mean, just to turn to the audience, if I was to tell you to change your business model, would you know where to begin? How many of you would know where to begin? No. Because I think it's very easy to tell, businesses, whether they're big or small, what needs to be done. But what you mentioned earlier is the how. And I feel like, Marco, you're a really good example of the how. Because when we were speaking earlier, you were telling me about the things that your company is doing to help, I guess, brands and the industry move forward in a much more positive light. Do you want to share a little bit about your company so people can understand what it is I'm referring to when I say that you guys are pushing forward?
Yes, it's a very complicated answer. But for example, just to make some example, Manteco has an academy inside the company, and it's called Manteco Academy, where 3 people are going around the world to the university to speak with the designer, to speak with the young designer that want to become like the next generation. And we are going to talk to them how the garment has to be done, what they have to implement, what is important to say, what is important to do. This, I think, is the best message. We need to educate the young generation that the price in the store is not the only reason to buy, but we have to look at different aspects of the garment and different meaning of the garment. Probably it will become soon, because the legislation will help us to understand, we help the consumer to understand why that garment is costing €5 towards €50, and what is the traceability, what is the digitalization. To be sustainable, for me, it is not even a word to use again. Sustainability means marketing for most of the time. And the marketing, it's very dangerous at the moment, because could be a boomerang that is coming back to the brands, and without any possibility to find excuse. So the best possible way, in my opinion, to look at the future is to try and trace all the chain. To be really sustainable means to know what you are buying since the beginning of the chain, since the raw materials, since the farms, going up to the finishing product. And in this way, we can tell to the consumer exactly what is the meaning of their price and what they are buying. In this way, we can educate the end of consumer, the consumer to understand better. Otherwise, it's a big confusion. In my opinion, also the circular economy business is something that everybody has to understand, maybe to try and do some more circular practice, but also the most important is to use durable yarns, durable fabrics, something that can be recyclable, but also that you can use for long time. The fast fashion is never going to be something that is going to be important in terms of sustainability, because even if you use something that is traced, but you throw it away after a few weeks, this is going to be a problem for the market, for sure. So first is durability, and then traceability, and then obviously the digitalization, and to give the possibility to the end consumer from the QR code that they will find in the garment to see the life of that garment. For me, this is the story.
Thank you, Marco. You wanted to add, I could see you wanted to add to it.
Yeah, first of all, I totally agree to Marco's point that this marketing is very dangerous. Also, it's also very dangerous because it creates the illusion that we are already achieved our goals. You know, because if you follow these marketing messages, you feel like, well, it seems to be on a good way, and we're getting there. But actually, when we're talking about your specialty of recycling fibers, statistically, right now only 30% of the clothes that are discarded are actually collected and used in some way or the other. Most of it is downcycled, and only 1% of fibers are actually recycled in the entire industry. So meaning taking fibers from used garments to new garments. So you're seeing here a very rare example, a person that represents this 1%, and yeah, so just to put it in a scale, to see that we're actually very far from being there, from
getting where we need to get to.
practicing recycling.
You want to add something, yes?
Yeah, I think you both touched upon very interesting points, because I'm involved. I'm going to give an example. I'm involved in a European project called SKIRT, where we're also working on post-consumer textile to textile recycling. So we're actually using post-consumer waste to try to recycle it into new garments. And we see that it's really difficult, as we all know. But we have to, because we see in the legislation, for example, EPR in the Netherlands, by 2025, they already want to have 25% of the post-consumer waste that is collected to be possibly to be prepared to be recycled or reused into new textiles. This, for me, this is insane. Like, these kind of targets, it's pushing us in the right direction. But, and then that's the big but, these kind of targets are good. But what Marco has mentioned is that sometimes we forget to look at the quality. And I don't want to say that recycled fabrics aren't qualitative. That's not my point here. But quality should always be the first thing we look at. And in the project we're involved in at this point, for example, we try to recycle a pant that is a wool polyester lycra mix. We started from that difficult mix because we want to create something that's actually asked for by the market, not create some kind of textile that nobody's going to use. We want to create something that brands are really going to use, a market pull perspective. So we took a pants from Xandres, one of the brands I work for, and we dismantled it. We did a chemical recycling test, mechanical recycling tests, and then we saw that if we want to recycle it, to get it in the quality the initial pants was, we have to use so much energy that it isn't economically, but also not ecologically feasible to get it in the same quality. And then the question is, at that point, what's the decision? Do you want more recycled fibers, or do you want a qualitative pants? And sometimes we forget that when we design, we have to think about the use. If the pants, in this case, is being made as a uniform for workers on trains who will wear it for their entire career, so it's not fashionable products, it makes sense to not have the recycled content, but to choose for the qualitative fiber instead, because you know that it will have a long life. And sometimes it's a really difficult balance, and it's also in legislation so complex that we should also take these kind of design principles into account, I think.
Yeah, we have to be realistic about the limitations of recycling. According to studies, only 20% of discarded clothes have the potential to be recycled. So 80% of the garments cannot realistically be recycled. But we should, we should at least try to recycle. Well, first of all, collect as much as possible, and then to recycle this potential of this 20% potentially recyclable clothes. Yes.
I mean, I think you kind of are making really good points, and these are the kind of variables that I feel when it comes to policy and new rules being kind of coming into play, they need to be taken into consideration. To say recycle X amount and then expect the industry at a snap of the fingers to do it is unlikely, because like you said, some materials can't be recycled. What then? What would be the next rule? So I think when it comes to looking at textiles overall, we need to look at variables like the ones you guys mentioned, because otherwise they're going to put in place rules and regulations that no one can actually abide by. It will be a bloodbath. It will be a situation where we won't see coming, and I feel like this is why I think it's important that people like yourself need to be part of that decision when it comes to policy. And just before we move into policy, which I really want to talk about, I also want to mention what you said, Mark, about sustainability, because I kind of write a lot about it, and I feel like it's gone through a change. Sustainability before was beige, middle class, and unaffordable, and that's what I remember, something that was sustainable. And now we've moved into sustainability being marketing tools used by brands. And I think when policy comes into play, it's going to go to its next kind of regeneration, which is sustainability will become respectable again. And to be sustainable would be to adhere to the rules that they're going to put in place. So when it comes to these new rules, I'm sure most of you are aware of some of the legislations that are going to be coming into play by the EU. What are your initial thoughts? Are you like, hooray, this is amazing? Or are you kind of like, well, is the industry ready to comply? I don't think so. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of legislation because I think we need it to push our industry forward. We've been in hibernation mode a bit too long, and now I think we can really make progress with the legislation that we see. But it's very important, and I also talked to you about this earlier, that in this entire story we don't forget that Europe and fashion industry in Europe is an SME industry, and we cannot only write legislation for big companies that have teams and resources to do data gathering and reporting and so on. So from my perspective, that's one of the very important action points at this point in time, that we look at the smaller companies and how they can comply with all these kind of things so it doesn't become a bloodbath. And the second point is that it's important, it's such an interconnected web, the legislation. I try to create an overview of all the legislation out there and how they're related to each other. It's a nice visual. I think we can make an artwork out of it if we want to. But if you just turn the wheel in one legislation, another one starts turning as well. So for example, eco-design is being, and the waste frame directive is being rewritten. But if you look at the end of life of garments, you have to look at the design phase. If we want to look at the design phase, we need the transparency in the value chain. So then the digital product passport comes into place. We can use the information on the digital product passport for the new reporting directive, but the complexity of it all, and especially for smaller brands, it's huge. So I think it needs to be clear enough, tangible enough, and actionable enough that it doesn't become this big monstrosity that nobody knows what's happening anymore.
I think we talked about a help desk, didn't we?
Yes.
That we need like an SOS help desk for the smaller companies and the medium-sized companies. So, they're the ones that can't afford or haven't got access to more information on what they need to do, their next plan. So, a help desk could be really good. And I think it should be the responsibility of each country to provide that. What are your thoughts on legislation? Good, bad?
I'd like to come back to recycling, because I think that recycling is also a very political, something that needs to be organized on a political level.
Yes.
Because I'd like to hear how it's like in your countries, because in Germany it's only 1/3 of clothes are actually collected, and the rest just go in the usual waste. The possibilities to hand in your used clothes have deteriorated actually in Germany. So it used to be easier, because there used to be these containers all over the place, and now they have taken away a lot of these containers. It's become even more difficult to hand in and it would be, of course, it's up to used clothes cannot be collected by private companies like yours. They have to be collected by a public organization.
Like how they collect our rubbish, for example. Let it be for clothes.
Exactly, and this needs to be organized better, definitely. And instead of improving over the last years, it has deteriorated in Germany. And I'd like to know how it is in your countries. So still, there's only 1/3 collected. And I was wondering also, and I would like to hear also your opinion about that. If you think that the consumer could be educated to hand in his clothes separate by material, like in Germany they managed to educate us to discard clear glass apart from tinted glass. And do you think it's realistic to one day say, please put your 100% polyester here, put your 100% cotton there?
No, first, it's a very complicated matter about the recycling. First of all, you have to start with almost has to be monofibers. For example, we can recycle wool and nylon, we can recycle some wool and tencel, but in general, the monofibers are the key for the recycling. Then you have to teach the designer how to do recyclable design, because if you start doing jackets or pants that has many different things over the garment, or you use something fusing, or it's going to be very complicated to recycle. Unless you also start the practices of repairing or second-hand, so all this together might be some kind of solution. But the recycling is not very easy. Also for the legislation that is going to happen in the next few months or next year or so, we are all waiting for the European Commission to give direction. It's going to be very dangerous, because we are risking that already now it's very complicated, because if you are talking about the legislation in the European community given by the REACH, there is 100% APEOS that has put as a chemicals restriction, which is very complicated to adapt into the recycling system. So on one side, we want to recycle, and we are pushing for the never-ending life of a garment, of a recycling system of a garment. But on the other hand, we are putting some legislation that sometimes do not know very well what means recycling and all the aspects. And I imagine in the European community, and I'm very worried about that, they don't know really too deep about the wool, about the cotton, about the viscose. So all this kind of aspect has different aspects. So it's complicated to understand all of this. It's complicated for us, but it's much more complicated for somebody that has to write legislation and laws.
Yeah, that's why I think people like yourself should be part of the conversation. I mean, throwing it back to the audience, how many of you recycle your clothes? Is anyone brave enough to tell me how you do it? Do you put it in a box? Do you put it in a... Anyone put their hand up if you want to share how you recycle your clothes? Okay, the lady at the front. Is it not talking? Can we have the mic so we can hear what she's saying? Try speaking it. Do you know what? I am one for sharing, so let's go.
Okay, now everybody's waiting for my answer. No, but I did try to, because I have a sustainable brand, so I was aware about these practices before I founded the brand. And I actually used the textile containers on which there was written charity and recycling. And then I actually went to talk to the people who own the company, and and I went to the facility, and then they explained everything to me, that only 20% of what I put inside will be recycled. If someone puts something which is dirty, it will contaminate the whole container, so then they can throw it away. Part of it they are giving to charity, but that's like 10%, and nothing gets recycled to the textile fiber. So basically, I changed my behavior, and what I do is that I give my clothes to friends or our cleaning lady, because I think that makes more sense than just sending it to Africa, basically.
I mean, that's a really strong point, guys. I'm sure some of you, I don't know if any of you are Dutch, but there was an article written about, I think they put like air tags in things that are going to be recycled for H&M, and they just kind of followed them around the world and where they ended up. And it was this massive scandal, you know, very scandalous. And it kind of showed that the good intentions of some of these brands, you know, it's great when you read the marketing, you're doing your bit, but then to actually find out that actually they're not really doing what they said they're going to be doing. And like for this lady said, when you learn that, it kind of demotivates you. So you guys are talking about recycling, let's do it, you know, it's a really good way. But how can we motivate them to do it? How can we make them believe again in being part of the solution?
Yeah, but I think it's a really important point that you're touching upon, because even the organization who does the collecting, a lot of them also want a better solution, but there isn't one at the moment. And yes, we can improve innovation, put more energy and time and money in technology and improving, but 1% at this point. So how will we reach even 50% in recycling? What are the other alternatives? You have upcycling. Yes, we can create new garments out of it, but at this point, only limited edition, because we don't have industrialized it yet, like a system to do good upscaling. What else is there? You can give it to someone else, but then there's a reason why you don't wear it anymore. So either it's broken down, so no one wants to wear it anymore, or it doesn't fit anymore. Okay, then there's a good reason maybe someone will fit in it. And then there's style. And then we come to a very important topic in our industry. If this year skinny jeans is in, and next year, and then I look at the trend analysts in the room, but next year flare jeans are in, no one wants to wear the skinny jeans anymore. So what are we gonna do with it? And send it to Africa, where we have too many. We just have too much clothing. We'll never be able to solve it. Also, not people who collect and sort and recycle and upcycle. So it starts again with slowing down, all of us, with thinking about what we buy. How long will we wear it? Do we really want it? Do we think we can combine it with things in our closets? And try to do less of impulsive buying and reflect before we buy. And that's an attitude that we all need to learn along the way, I think. Like, put value back in our garments. And it's not, we don't do it on purpose. It's just something that was grown throughout the years. Fashion it used to be made for you. It was couture. It was made for your body and only for you. And it was a good thing that we democratized fashion. So we saw that also people with less money could be fashionable and could switch their clothing and their garments and their wardrobes. But it escalated the entire other direction to a system that's just not healthy anymore. So yes, we need to recycle and we have to look for end-of-life solutions. But still, we need to slow down as a society in general.
No, I want to tell you that our company, in the few things that we can do, we recycle around 2.5 million knitwear garments per year. And what we are doing are very important practices with the brands. For example, we tell to the brand, whatever we send, when we send the merchandise to your garment maker, the offcuts that are created by your garment maker and that you don't use anymore, please, and which is between 4 and 12% of the total amount of the fabric, please send to us and we reconvert these offcuts in raw material and the fabric again for you or for other customers. We are already doing all of this in a big way. Also, we tell to the brands to make exchange kind of partnership with their final consumers. So they bring back the pants or the knitwear stuff, and we bring us back directly from the brand. So we have all these practices, but Manteco is only, we do what we can, really. We are putting a lot of effort on this. But yes, looking at the total amount is very complicated.
And I think it's important work you're doing, definitely, and all the recyclers. I'm also involved in these projects because I believe we need to improve and do more of this kind of work. But that alone won't solve the pile of garments we have at this point. That's what I think.
No, it's true.
I'm looking back, I'm just thinking about what you said. I mean, being a consumer myself, I think we shouldn't put so much pressure on consumers to change their behavior, because changing anyone's behavior is really, really hard. The only way we change consumer behavior is, for example, you go to the supermarket, you're not allowed to just buy you're not allowed to take plastic bags anymore. You have to pay for it. I have to pay for it. Okay, I'll bring one from home. Or you think along the lines of anything that we are kind of put rules in place that we need to follow. Because I feel like it's like giving someone a car and say drive safely, but there's no rules really in place. But we know you're going to drive safely because we've told you. I think when it comes to consumers, there's some who are capable of being able to be conscious, and then there's others like myself sometimes, who don't really think along those lines. So it's like, should we also then put laws in place for consumers, not just businesses, but also maybe consumers? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think one thing that we learned during the energy crisis that we have experienced lately is that price is the only thing that works. Price is going up. So when we look back at when Greta Thunberg told us, we should act like our house was on fire, didn't really change anything in our behavior. But as soon as energy prices went up, suddenly all over Germany at least, people suddenly started, they managed to save 20%, use 20% less energy just when the prices went up. So and it wasn't even hard. It was things that they could have done a long, long time ago, like not illuminating shops and in the middle of the night or things like that. So no sacrifice at all. What I'm trying to say is if you implement these kind of minimum requirements on a EU basis for ecological minimum standards for products, whether it's been done in the right way or not, but the idea is the right idea. prices will go up and will slow down consumption. But as
What
long
about-
as a T-shirt is well, it's what we still witness. The awareness is growing that we need to be more sustainable. But as soon as there is a company like Shein offering even cheaper clothes than Zara or H&M, people start buying clothes at a faster pace. There's just no way. Price is the only thing that will slow down fashion in the end.
I mean, I think you're definitely on point. But what about people that can't afford garments? What about them?
I like to reply to that because
Yes, please, go ahead.
that's a question, and because I totally agree with. It's not normal that we can buy a €4 or dollar T-shirt. If you think about the process, it's not possible. And even if it's possible, you stimulate overconsumption because you indicate that it's something that you should consume instead of use. Like you eat a sandwich, it's only €4, you eat a sandwich. You don't do a lifetime with a sandwich. So it's the mindset of the pricing. But then what about with people who cannot afford it? Those people are not the problem. The problem are the people that go to Shein or Primark every week or every month and buy 5 to 10 bags of garments of this kind of price range. They can make another choice. They have the spending power to buy a €30 T-shirt, but they prefer to buy 10 T-shirts costing €3. That's the problem. So not the problem who really can afford to buy one Primark T-shirt. Those people are not the problem in this discussion. So it's not actually about poverty on that level. I think, that's some kind of mindset that we need to get out of. And I like to talk about the cost per wear when we talk about this discussion. If you buy a T-shirt that costs you €2 and you only wear it once, it costs you €2. If you buy a T-shirt from €20, you wear it 10 times, it also costs you €2. So it's just, you can spend the same amount of money, but make better choices.
But isn't it, I mean, I think you make a really good point, and I'm kind of holding on to it because I remember I gave a talk and a lot of the people in the audience was poor students. And they were like, it's great, the sustainability stuff, but come on, I can't afford it. So isn't it holding brands accountable in sense of the quality of clothes should be something we talk about? So rather than looking at like, oh, you're buying a £4 T-shirt, how about we make it an £8 T-shirt, but the quality is better? So not only does Johnny wear it, but little Timmy also then inherits it and also wears it, and then bring it down. I mean, my kids, I buy good quality clothes, I pass them along. They kind of just all wear them,
It's the durability that has to drive us in the future.
Yes.
The problem is that those kind of brands like Shein, like Primark, they are involving such a big part of the young generation through the marketing that their mind, through the phones, is going directly to Shein. Not even it's costing €1 or €2. It's a mind problem. It's a drug for them. This phone is driving them to buy from them. So this is the biggest problem right now, that we are too much attached to this technology, and this technology drive where these people want, not where you want. And so we have to teach the young generation, and we have to go around in the school like we are trying to do, driving the university and driving the school, that there is something else more than the price and more than the advertising.
But you know what it's like? I remember being young once upon a long time ago, and if my parents told me not to do something, like Muchaneta, don't do that. That is bad. I want to do it more. Like I just didn't listen to them. You know what I mean? So I can imagine, because I also lecture students, and I'll go into the class and I'll be like, guys, you need to think about maybe using recycled materials in your next collection when you do like an end of year collection. How about? They're like, no, what? No, I want to be an authentic designer. So do you see what I mean? So it's really hard to teach them. So I actually foresee a future where policy will ensure that companies like Shein are not able to actually sell their wares in EU because they're not complying to the standards that they've set. So I don't think it's something that consumers are going to be able to stop shopping there. because it's shown that it's not possible for some. But what will stop it, if you agree, is legislation coming into play, where it's like if you don't tick these boxes, you can't sell in the EU. Simple as that.
Yeah, I totally agree. But there's one interesting point about what you said, that if your parents tell you not to do something, you don't. One of the key findings of my books is that we're still very, very social creatures, and we are mainly influenced, but not by society as a whole, but by our peer group. This is so crucial to educate people and like Marco said, to get people or young people to stop buying the things I'll give you an example. If all my friends are vegetarians, I'm very likely to stop eating meat. If all my my friends meet up every weekend to a grill party, a barbecue party, then I'm very likely to eat meat too. So we're very strongly influenced by our peer group, and this can have the strongest effect on educating people. And it can work. It worked, for example, for fur. That it seemed impossible because for hundreds of years or thousands of years, fur was the status symbol number one. And within a very short time period, it's become like a no-go to wear fur. And the same, I think it's not so impossible to educate people and to get people to stop by fast fashion. But it only works if the people you care about, your peer group, makes you feel like it's the wrong thing to do. But as long as all your friends or your closer friends buy unethical products, it's very easy for you to ignore the downside of it and to keep doing it. But once you feel like when everyone else is smoking, then you feel like it's the right thing to do. But when you're the only one standing outside in the rain smoking your sad cigarette while everyone else is inside celebrating, then you start feeling bad, and that's.
I know, but when I'm kind of thinking along the lines of what you just said about the peer, and I think that's super important. So would you argue that right now with social media, a lot of the kind of like peers are forcing more people to buy more clothes? I mean, you look online and they got their bags of like garments they've purchased.
Yeah, well, if we go back to the example of fur, of the use of fur in fashion, then it shows that social media can change our society for good and for worse, because social media made us stop buying fur, because you share these horrible videos of how animals are treated, and that has an effect. And so but it also made us consume at a faster pace and wanting to have what everybody else is having and following trends and accelerating fashion. So it can change our society for good and for worse.
So would you guys think, I mean, I know everyone's always going, stop fast fashion, we can't have fast fashion. And I think I've come to the conclusion it's not about stopping fast fashion. I think it's about improving fast fashion. So for example, you take it back to the design phase and you think about, how can we educate designers to think about the end of product, the materials they use, the better quality, the price point? Can we make it higher? Because like you said, you can't have a cheap garment like that, and who's suffering along the lines for me to buy a £4 t-shirt? So isn't it not so much about stopping fast fashion, but improving the conditions, like making sure that certain materials are used, making sure that certain price points are hit, making sure that designers think about the end of product, that they're actually responsible for the end of product, holding Primark and H&M responsible financially, hitting them where it hurts.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that was sometimes unclear about or confusing or misleading in the discussion is that the lobbies made us feel like there is already a legislation for the minimum standards of products that can be sold in our countries. And now this legislation has been taken too far and being made too strict. the truth is there has been zero. So at least in Germany, you could, no matter how child labor, slave labor, Germany is the third biggest importer of products that are produced with slave labor. And because, there was nothing stopping people from bringing, from filling the shelves and racks in German shops with products that were produced using slave labor, using the most horrible, unsustainable processes, and so on.
So do you think we need definitions of what it is for human rights, what it is to be sustainable, so we all understand it and we're all on the same kind of like level playing field?
Minimum standards, definitely. It is the idea is absolutely right, and that the European Union has created certain minimum standards. Whether this first law is perfect or not can be discussed, but the idea is the right idea, because this can only be solved on that level. Yeah.
Before we continue, I just want to throw it out there. If anyone's got a question, a statement, a comment that they would like to kind of be part of what we're discussing up here, because I can talk to these guys like forever. So I just want to make sure you guys get a space to share your opinion, thoughts, and questions. Anyone? Okay, there's a gentleman and a lady. Okay, there we go. Oh, there's one in there. Yeah.
Hey, okay. I mean, listen to you from the outside. We talk about legislation, we talk about quality standards, we talk about product passport, to be very clear about what I buy, and that has to come, I guess. But at the same time, we talk also about control. We talk about maybe quantity. How many garments can I buy a year? Can be set up a certain quality standard, but then we are soon at George Orwell or wherever we don't want to be. What is our solution?
So what do you think, guys? Taking that control factor out of, I guess, my right to buy. If you take that away, what are your thoughts on the gentleman?
It's not the right to buy. It's a question of quantity and quality, because we set up quality standards. We take the product passport where we know where the yarn comes from, how is the labor involved, if the worker is paid minimum wage or existential necessary wage. Big problem. 95% of our garments are made from poor people. If it's sustainable brands, if it's H&M or whatever, it is not up to need of the society's minimum wage. It's a minimum wage, but it's not existential. So when I know all this, then we still have the problem of quantity, and how can we resolve this?
What do you think, guys?
Yeah, like you also said, when you have to meet, when you have to pay minimum, when you're legally bound to pay minimum wages or existential wages and meet certain sustainability standards, the prices of clothing will go up and quantities will go down. This is a first step. It might not.
This is what we want.
That's what I want. Yeah.
I think
what
you're
we
right.
should want. Yeah.
Because I mean, how many of us buy loads of plastic bags in the supermarket now? I'm sure when they were free, we were like, an orange can go in this bag and a banana can go in that bag. But now you're paying 60p or whatever it is per bag. The quantity of how many you buy, you're more conscious. You make more conscious decision, right? Or am I wrong, guys?
No, I totally agree. And I understand that it's scary because it's basically it's the way we know the industry works, and saying, okay, we're not going to do it like this anymore. And if we change the price and we upper it, and it feels like if there are other ideas on it, I'm very happy to listen to you as well. But for me also, the price is the reason why the quantities are so big. And then yes, there will be the need of different business models. And no, not all companies will keep on existing. It's not feasible in the way we do it at this point. But then it's the question, do you truly believe this is the direction we should go or not? And if it is yes, yeah, then we need to be courageous and try to push through the change and look for new business models and new ways to make money without only relying on infinite growth, which we all know is not feasible. There's no model that can keep on growing and growing forever. So also this model is not feasible in the future.
Bottom line is we need to accept control.
And the Big Brother question, like the George Orwell question, that's a question we see now in a lot of industries, I think. Do we want it, and are we able to do it as well? Because you also referred to REACH legislation earlier. We already have legislation that says that certain chemicals cannot enter the European Union. It still happens because we don't have the power to control everything. We don't have the capacity to do the controlling of everything. So I think the question is not only if we want to do it, but also are we able to do it? And this is something that we will also have to see in the future, which direction it's going to.
The situation is I think that too much difference when we want to sell our product to China and when Chinese legislation is not permitting to export whatever we are importing here. This was the biggest mistake that European did a few years ago, and this took us in a situation where we could, the fast fashion could import anything they want because of price, and now we are in a situation where they've been growing so much. They are so strong on social media. They are so strong with the new generation. And it's complicated to come back. I think the only solution will be to have the responsibility on the final garment, to put a maximum, leftover. They cannot have more than 3%, 4% or leftover of their production. This could be something that could be as a legislation, because they are producing without probably understanding that maybe a part is too much and is going into different countries. So I don't think there is only one solution, but there is many different things that applying all together in the next 5, 10, 20 years, we can probably be in a different situation. But in the meantime, if we are permitting to shine, like company like Shein or other like big industry like that, to come into Europe and to do whatever they want, we will never stop it. If you want to go to China, if you want to export your fabric to China, it's complicated. It's not like coming here. So we have to look at the different steps and to educate the final consumer that the price is only a part of their solution. It's not all their solution, because you can think to buy something at €2 or €3, but this €3 is out of fashion. You have to buy it again after 2 weeks. It's something that the mentality has to change. And to change the mentality, obviously, you have to go in different steps. Right now, we are doing something in the European Commission. We are improving. Everybody is thinking how to solve all this situation. And I think there will be an improvement. How far we go, I don't know. But at least we are thinking about digital solution, which is not a small thing, I believe. Will be quite a big step, I believe.
Yeah, I would like to come back to the control question. I think we should be, to a certain extent, grateful for control. Like, and I'd like to compare this to in Germany. Like, if if you want to open a restaurant, you want to cook for other people and serve other people food, you're controlled. They make sure that you meet certain standards in hygiene and freshness and everything. So me as a guest, it makes me feel safe, and I'm very grateful for that, because otherwise I would have to go myself into the kitchen and check how they're cooking my food. So I can rely on certain minimum standards being met, and I would be personally very grateful to know that if I'm going into a shop and I'm buying something, to be sure that certain minimum standards are being met. I would highly appreciate that, to have that for clothes too, to know that have been produced meeting minimum standards socially and ecologically.
I think you make a really good point there. And I think when you use like an everyday example, it sinks in much better, because then you're like, okay, yeah, I wouldn't want somebody cooking my food and I have no idea the standards of cleanness in their kitchen, right? So if policy comes into play, it brings a different type of standard to our clothing, which is so important right now. I think me and Jasmien were talking about dyeing. Was it dyeing and how it kind of affects our skin and stuff like that. I mean, imagine if you know that your clothes can harm you, but you can't walk around naked. So what's the solution? You know, the government needs to step up and say, actually, guys, if it has this type of chemicals, then, you know, we cannot sell it in this country. The same way with our food. Imagine if you're going into a shop and you buy a sandwich. You know, there's certain standards in selling food. There's certain standards in selling meat. At the end of kind of like that date they put on the food. So you know, after this day, if I eat this at my own risk, you know. So we need the same type of menu, kind of like idea and thoughts behind clothes. Do you not agree? But when it comes to textiles, we're nearly finishing, but I want to ask you this question, bringing it back to textiles, bringing it back to, you know, what we're here about. What do you think the textile industry, taking into account legislation, taking into account all the topics that we spoke about, and also understanding that they're a traditional industry, they're old school, how can we encourage them to make next steps? You know, are we talking scare tactics here? Are we talking trying to understand their position? I mean, how can we encourage them?
Like the industry?
The textiles industry as a whole. Imagine this whole room is the textile industry, and they're looking at you and they're saying, how can we change? And you know, give us some inspiration, give us some thought, give us some direction.
Yeah, your first question was more on why we should do it,
I think people understand. I think you all know why we should change, right? We don't need to tell you. Okay, I think they got the why, but the how.
Yeah.
I think that, for example, a strong point will come if you produce everything within, 10 miles, 100 miles in your region, in your country. You should have a big deduction, for example, in taxes. You could be really helped by European community. It doesn't happen right now. If you produce in China, if you produce here, it doesn't change too much.
You're saying money should be an incentive for the
if you invest in a closer chain, if you invest in your country, if you invest for the future, and if you give the work, work to people that are belonging to your place, why I should not be put in a position to invest more and to do more and to be able to be presented in a different way. It doesn't make the difference now if you produce here or if you produce in Eastern Europe, if you produce in China, you're all the same. We produce everything within 8 miles, 8 kilometers or 5 kilometers from our headquarters, and we only can say that, but nothing is helping us. Nobody's helping us.
So you're saying the industry needs incentives in order to move forward?
The industry needs to give help to this kind of situation. If you can produce around you, you can be more sustainable, you can be more traceable, you can be more digital, you can consume less energy, less water, less of everything. And you need to be compensated for this. It's not possible that everybody is only looking at the margin without taking a look on where you produce or what you produce.
Yeah, I think you make a valid point. When we talk about margins and finance, everyone takes it seriously. So that's one aspect, but that's maybe my main advice would be take it as seriously as you take your margins and your finance. It's like make someone responsible. If you don't have the resources, it can be yourself, but or let's take some advice or guidance if you don't have someone in-house who can support you with this. But look at it as how you would look at finance in your company, because it is as important. And if you see that, you will also treat it differently. You will make analysis of where your risks are. You will see where your quick wins are, what your priorities are, what the next steps are you need to take, and how you can reach them, who you need to reach your targets, what skills do you still need, what knowledge do you lack to know where to go. So make it like a real important topic within your company, and then look where your specific risks are, because of course local production or doing it as locally as possible is one of the aspects, but it's not feasible for everyone. So it might be something entirely else for you in your company to focus on at this point. It could be on prolonging the long life of your garments, or putting in a repair and care system for free, lifelong guarantee on your items, have a material matrix that pushes you to low impact materials, educating your design team just to know what the labels on all the fabrics are, like GOTS and GRS. Not every design team knows what these labels are even. So I think you need to see it as an important project to be able to set the right targets, and then you know where to move forward to and what your priorities are.
I think that's really good advice. And last words, what are your thoughts?
Well, I wanted to agree to Marco that sometimes politics don't see that, well, have this idea that acting ethically or producing locally or producing sustainably is slowing down the economy. But like you just gave an example, like it's improving the economy, the Italian economy, if you produce local, and the same goes for, like, for example, recycling. If you take it seriously and if you push it, then studies say that recycling could create 15,000 new jobs in Europe. So, but there's always this myth that is pushed by lobbies, probably also too, that acting well ethically is slowing down the economy, but it's not always true. There's a lot of potential in that.
I think what I've learned from you guys today is basically this need to understand that it doesn't stop with one action. You know, if just because you recycle doesn't suddenly mean that you're being very sustainable. There's other little things that you still need to do in order to move forward. And I really appreciate you guys sharing your knowledge on stage. And we could talk forever. We're actually 5 minutes over, but I invite the audience, please don't be scared to come up to our experts, ask them any questions. They're a friendly bunch, as you can see. So yes, thank you so much for listening to us. We appreciate it. Thank you.